Good afternoon. Before Jesus was crucified, he was interrogated by Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman governor of the region at that time. But as the Gospel of John tells us a story, Pilate was the one in the hot seat, not Jesus. Part of Pilate's problem was that he asked Jesus the wrong questions. The first question he asked was, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus responded by saying, "Is this your own question? Or are you asking me this because you're listening to other people?" See, it was those who had brought Jesus to Pilate who had said, "He's the king of the Jews," not Pilate. How often do we do or say or ask what other people tell us to do or say or ask, instead of following our own journey? When we ask other people's questions, when we live other people's goals, when we try to live up to other people's expectations, then our lives are no longer our own. The path of our lives end up having nothing to do with us. We lose ourselves in the midst of trying to live up to expectations or asking other people's questions. So, are you asking the right questions? Do they come from your heart? Are they the direction that the Lord is leading you? Or are you asking questions that you think you're supposed to ask? Are you living the kind of life you think you're supposed to live? Well, Pilate tried again, and he asked Jesus, "What is it you have done?" And this is another example of asking the wrong question. Now, it was understandable for Pilate to ask Jesus, "What is it you've done?" because Jesus was brought before him under accusation of committing a crime. And Pilate didn't know what the alleged crime was. But isn't it odd for Pilate to ask the accused criminal, "What is it that you've done?" How often does a judge or a district attorney or whomever it might be ask the accused person, "What is it that you have done? What is it that you are charged with?" They're not the people you ask. Now, to Pilate's credit, before he started to interrogate Jesus, he had asked Jesus' accusers, "What is it that he's done?" And they answered Pilate with a non-answer. They said, "If he wasn't a criminal, we wouldn't have brought him to you." How often do we ask the wrong questions of God? How often do we ask the wrong questions of other people? They are misdirections. They lead us to live lives from the wrong perspective. They prevent us from being open to the situation in front of us. So, how can we avoid asking the wrong questions? Perhaps the answer to that question is to look at what Pilate did wrong. Pilate wanted Jesus. Pilate wanted the whole situation that he was in at that point. He wanted it all to fit into his schema of how things are supposed to be done, on how things would fit into his framework of the world. Pilate failed to recognize that something new was happening, that God was doing a new thing. And that's the trick. Because God is always doing a new thing. Perhaps that's how we can ask the right questions. We can ask the right questions by first asking God, "What is the new thing that you are doing here? What is the new thing that you're doing today? What is the new thing that you are doing in my life?" Start by asking questions like that, and then see where the Lord leads you. If you enjoy this and the other devotions that I offer, just like to remind you that you can support our ministry by going to our church's website, www.oldunionchurch.com, and click on the Give Now button to offer whatever you think would be meaningful. Would you pray with me, please? Lord, help us to ask the right questions. Not to ask the questions that other people think we should ask. Not to ask questions that come from the way we think things are supposed to be. Help us to be open. Help us to be open for the way in which you are moving in our lives and in our hearts, and ask questions that arise from that. Help us to be open, Lord, that our questions don't come from the way we think things are supposed to be, but help us always to be open to the new things that you are always doing. Amen. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk again later.